I hesitate to say what a mess, because some things are doing great, but what a mess the summer crops are. The winter crops, not so bad. So I'm going to do a quick tour around and show you what's going on. I'm going to start with these Brussels. So these are, in the main, growing pretty well. Got a little bit of a problem here with pigeons standing on the compost bins and munching them. And a little bit of a problem, as you can see, with this purple discoloration here with cabbage aphid, which mostly I've just been squashing with my fingers like that, and that's what's doing the damage to the leaf tips. I've got the occasional leaf which I've had to take off that's kind of been really badly infested, but mostly I'm coping. Haven't had to spray with BT for caterpillars, although I have had caterpillars. I've just squashed those. Taken a lot of the lower leaves off and just keep doing that. Because I don't plant at the recommended density, you know, I plant much closer together, it's very important to keep on top of these lower leaves so that we keep the airflow going. And then down here I've got my first kind of what you might think of as a storage crop of beetroot, although some of them are going to be harvested in summer. Some of them are doing fine, and then some of them are doing pretty rubbish. So we'll see how those size up. I mean, they were only sowed 16th of April. So, you know, they've got plenty of time still to grow. I'm pretty happy with them. Leaf quality is good. Have had them covered for quite a few weeks. So there's no real problems with beet leaf miner, which there would have been if I hadn't had them covered. And I got the odd weed, of course, growing in them because I had them covered and I couldn't get in there and do the weeding. And I did have shallots in here. I've harvested all the shallots. I lost about 50 of them, went to seed, and I just composted those because the remaining 50% of them were fine, and they're the ones that we've been eating. And we've got a lot of shallots, so I'm not too worried really about any of that. Quite pleased to see not much rust, if any, maybe just a little bit there on these leaves, and so I'm hopeful that they're going to be okay. And yeah, I've got quite a lot of leeks actually in addition to this. So this is the winter bed. Spring bed's doing really nicely back in the kitchen garden, and I've got some more leeks, little ones, little tiny ones really, a bit too small to be planted out for spring. And the yacon here is, well, some of it's doing well. This is just a spare plant I decided to pop in, but the others are growing quite strong. I've got quite a bit of yacon actually in containers as well back at home, and I did have all spinach all the way around the outside of this bed, not to waste the space, and I've harvested all that now. I might even put a row of lettuce in here, but the problem with this bed is it's really sluggy because of this on the other side of the plot. So anything I plant in here has to be pretty resistant to slugs, and obviously lettuce doesn't really fit that criteria. Harvested pretty much all the gooseberries now, so I'm pleased about that, and just took my last of my early potatoes out of this bed here, and I was pretty pleased with that harvest. It is quite a shady spot here, shaded by this shed and the IBC tank and this tree here and this tree here and this tree here. So you know, I never expect a fantastic crop, but in there I've now got 2 cauliflowers, 2 calabrese, no, 3 cauliflowers, 3 calabrese and 4 Savoy cabbages. And I've got another batch like that on Debbie's plot, and another succession to go in a few weeks' time after the onions. And then down here we've got the first batch of purple sprouting broccoli, and we've got a second batch of that to go in as well. And this is the winter carrot bed. It's doing pretty well. It desperately needs the cover taking off and it needs weeding, but I just need an evening when I can come down and do that. And I want to do it and then water it in with the nematodes, because I really don't want carrot fly getting into this bed. It's too important to me. And I'm going to be watering this bed with slug nematodes as well, because I had a lot of problems with slugs in the carrot bed last year, and again, I really don't want that again this year. So these are the Sarpomeras, two different types of Sarpomera. Well, actually that's Sarpomera, this one is Sarpa something else, not Sarpa una, I don't think, Sarpa axo. So they're looking really nice, in stark contrast to the rest of the potatoes, which I'll show you in a minute. Well, actually I'll show you now, because here's some of the potatoes, and they're pretty much all died back, and they've only been in the ground 78 days. So that is pretty grim. I have just harvested one tub, 2 tubers, and the harvest was reasonable, but the size was very small. So that is what we've got to look forward to now, is lots of little potatoes for a long time. Well, at least until September time, when we harvest all of these. So yeah, not such a great story there. Apple tree. This is the only apple tree on my plot that's really got anything like a decent harvest, but there's still issues with it. You can see some bitter pit on it, and yeah, just some grubs and whatever. So it's not, this tree isn't really great. I keep thinking about taking it out and putting something different in. Cherry tree, almost no cherries on it again this year. Lots of flowers. One of these years we'll get a lovely cherry harvest. And this is another apple tree, and we've got like one apple here, another apple here. So it's really weird that this apple tree, this apple tree, this apple tree, that apple tree, and that apple tree over there have almost no apples on them. And yet on Debbie's plot there's loads of apples. So it's really confusing as to what happened in this little area that resulted in no apples. Anyway, that's the bad stuff. So got a few blueberries here, and then the peppers. Now the peppers are the surprise success of this year's so far, because you know it's been grim. The weather's been worse than a normal spring this summer so far, and yet these peppers are beautiful, and there's loads of them, and they're huge, and yeah, all the varieties, doesn't matter which one you look at, they've all done really well. Okay, see, just stacks and stacks and stacks of peppers. Let me just zoom in on that a little bit so you can see. Yeah, loads. Timing. It was just perfect timing when I put these in. It was that sort of 10 days of lovely sort of sunny weather that we've had in the whole of like late spring and summer basically. And during that time they just set fruit, and then it's just under this low tunnel, it's just been warm enough for them. So yeah, I mean, just getting that fruit set is really important, as we'll see in a few minutes. But of course the red cabbages are absolutely loving it. So these are the early red cabbages, the ones that I started back in September. But yeah, they're great. And you know, I've harvested a few of these already. In fact, we've had red cabbages now for 3 weeks, I think. A little bit there of cabbage aphid. I'll take that leaf off in a minute. Yeah, they're great, aren't they? Looking really nice. So there's one that I harvested there, and I've harvested 4 others since we started. And again, I've been taking all these lower leaves off, and a lot of the lower leaves had cabbage aphid. But you know, if you keep on top of taking off the old leaves, and obviously less slug and snail problems and less pest problems in general. So now we're on to the summer carrots, which are also looking pretty good. I've just started harvesting a few of these as a test, and they're long, really long. So long that they're kind of getting all the way down to, this is one of the few beds where I've got a landscape fabric bottom, which is 6 inches below ground level, to try and keep the mare's tail out. And it's kind of succeeded in doing that, but it does mean that when the carrots hit the bottom, they kind of bend round, which makes them really hard to get out. But yeah, they're looking really nice. I'll just show you some of those actually on the harvest table from last week. And yeah, so I've actually got just a few more tubs of carrots on there. The ones at the back obviously are ready. The ones here are new carrot seedlings, which are just breaching the top of the pots. And I've got quite a lot of carrots growing in tubs for eating in autumn. So these are the outdoor tomatoes, and obviously they're not enjoying all this rain. We're harvesting a lot, but you know, you can see the leaf quality isn't very good. Some of the tomatoes are just splitting. Yeah, it's just not a great story. This is my little seating area. I've got my beans growing down here. They're all growing reasonably well. And got my outdoor tomatoes down here, which are actually looking pretty good. These are all the rejects actually. The ones that I didn't want to use indoors. And they're coming on well. Coming on well. I've got one squash plant that's kind of survived, and one there that got black fly and never recovered. And then these are the outdoor potatoes that I was talking about. So yeah, they're all dying back. We've got some more over there, they're all dying back. Those aren't quite dying back yet, but they're Estima. They're sort of late second early. These are all Shallots. And then in here, what have we got? We've got the beetroot. These are the late beetroot, and again I've got them covered just in case of beet leaf miner, which really affects the young plants, but they're all coming on really strong, so I'm really happy with those. And this is a sunny spot on my plot, so even though they went in late, I think they'll give us a decent harvest. We probably won't put these into store, we'll probably just harvest from this bed well all the way through until we run out basically, which will probably be early January, something like that, and then we'll switch over to the store. So that is all this part of the plot. So let's have a look here. So here we've got leeks down the back, just a few spares, and then these were salad onions, which I grew at main crop onion density, or maybe just a little bit higher, in the hope that if I didn't need them as salad onions, I'd get a main crop onion harvest. So I chose North Holland Blood Red and Lilia, and it's interesting that the Lilia is pretty much all gone to seed. Not everyone, but a lot of them. And the ones that haven't gone to seed haven't grown very much. So they're the ones who are going to be eating over the next few weeks. Whereas the North Holland Blood Red, I don't think any of those have gone to seed, and they've grown really nicely. So that is a real bonus. And you know, I always recommend this idea of growing Lilia and North Holland Blood Red or Sturon or something like that as your salad onion crop later on in the year, from sort of mid-February onwards, for about a month. Because you know, if like me you end up with a glut of salad onions because they do really well, then at least you can just leave them and get a decent harvest out of them. So my asparagus I left to grow on, so we harvested it until, well, I don't know exactly, I think probably the first week in June, and it was interplanted, actually you can see there, with tough ball onions and Lilia and North Holland red onions again. And again, I haven't got round to harvesting these, but again, there's, you know, quite a nice crop of them. I don't know whether you can see it down there, but quite a nice crop. I'm going to pick all these today, actually. So I'll show you them all, actually, now, assuming that I did actually get around to picking them. Yeah, so actually they look pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with that harvest. I'm not so pleased with these. Now, I did hesitate to show you this because it's so embarrassing, but I do like to show you my failures. And this was my spring cabbage bed, and after the spring cabbages I had 2 spare melons, and I thought, well, I'll pop those in. And I popped them in, you know, just at that time really when the weather was just so cold. You know, it was well below 9 degrees, or probably maybe sometimes 8 degrees at night. Not much better during the day. And yeah, so they pretty much look the same as when I planted them, really. They just put on almost no growth. The only thing is that a little bit of new growth that they put on at the ends there does look quite healthy, but I mean, the chance now of getting a melon harvest off these is probably like infinitesimally small. So I think this bed will get replanted, which is a shame because we do love the melons. This bed was planted maybe 2 weeks earlier, and so it had the advantage of that warm weather, and the leaves did get a little bit scalded actually because it was pretty warm, but still cold at night, and so I had to keep the bed closed, and as a result of that, you know, all these leaves got kind of scalded a bit, but all the new growth is looking pretty good. But there's no fruit set because it's been too cold. So yeah, again, just the chances now of getting anything from these melons, it's grim. I've got so many beds dedicated to melons, so yeah, I don't know what to do really. And again, these were planted just that little bit earlier, and you can see the difference that just planting 2 weeks earlier makes, so that they get to enjoy just that bit better weather when they were getting established. Just a really big difference. But still, no fruit set. So big plants, but you know, without fruits, not a lot of point growing them. You know, there are some little signs here, but I'm not sure that this is actually going to end up being a fruit. So anyway, I'll just have to see. I'll probably leave these plants in because they are the ones that are looking the best. And then I've got 2 more down there again, planted just that little bit later, because I had all that calabrese and cauliflower and everything in all these beds, and not doing very well. So yeah, so these raspberries have been great. So this is my first real year of harvesting these. I planted them last winter, and yeah, we've had a really lovely harvest off here. So I'm looking forward to continued abundance from this wall of raspberries as they get more and more established. And I keep on trying to keep them within the wires because I don't have a lot of space down here, so unless I keep them all tied into those wires, I just can't get down here. Not that it matters too much, given that I'm probably not going to get a harvest from these melons anyway. And more good news, these Mara de Bois strawberries, the everbearings, have been absolutely stunning. I've had such a good harvest from these, and obviously new flowers come in now, and so they should keep on giving for quite a long time. Strawberries are so forgiving to all sorts of different weather conditions, especially these everbearing ones, which are used to sort of growing in cooler weather rather. So then, yeah, we'll talk about the squash in a minute. Lettuce is 2 weeks from planting. You can see just how much the lettuce has loved this wet and cool, rainy, windy weather. Absolutely gorgeous. Let me get a bit closer so you can see those. Very happy with these. And this was a very sluggy bed, and I've managed to keep on top of the slugs here. And yeah, so excited to start harvesting these, because these are lovely young plants. The leaf quality should be really high, whereas my other lettuce beds are really old plants and the leaf quality is pretty tough. So yeah, not so good. And now, wow, let's just look at these. My goodness, these are good. I will do a dedicated video all about my system for growing peppers, but yeah, it's pretty good. These really big ones are Akron, the red variety, and these are little yellow ones, like lunchbox sort of type. And then just there I've got some purple potatoes, first earlies coming to an end, and then I've got some second earlies, Estima, those, and they're still looking reasonably okay. A little bit of dieback on some of the tips, but I think they've got a few more weeks. I might get those, if I'm lucky, to probably maybe 100 days old before they actually die, which is not long enough, but it's better than nothing. Might get some baking potatoes if we're lucky, and some more peppers. Let's look at that. So pretty good. The peppers back at home in the kitchen garden are ripening. There's the odd one of these that is ripening, and a couple that I lost. Well, I didn't lose, I picked, because there was a little bit of blossom end rot on them, which I always tend to get on, you know, the very first fruits. So I'm not too worried about it. We just pick those green and chop off the bad bit and just use them in stir fries and whatever. So it's not really a loss. Strawberries, these are the second earlies, so these have just finished. There's the odd one on there still. I'm going to cut those back today if I get a chance, and let them regrow. And then this is my old lettuce bed that I've been harvesting for ages and ages and ages. And again, actually, because it's been so cold and not very sunny, they've not really run to seed quite as quickly as I'd expect. So we've actually been harvesting this quite happily. I've just started taking some whole plants out because I do need this bed pretty soon for leeks. And as soon as that other bed that I showed you is ready, which is probably next week, I'll start stripping this bed out. And then these are the second, well, let's call them the first earlies, the first early strawberries from the Polytunnel. And I cut all these back, and all this is new leaf. So they've really done nicely, and I'm hoping to just use these again in the baskets next year. So I normally use second year runners, but in this case, as I say, it's just a lot easier if I can actually keep the same plants going for a couple of years. So fingers crossed that works out. And then we'll just talk about the squash. So I climb my squash up these canes and then across these support beams, and then I hang the actual winter squash from these, actually I think they're tile battens. So normally at this time of year these plants are at least up to here, if not up to here, and we've got quite a few fruits hanging from the tile battens, not ready for harvest, but not far off the first few ready for harvest. This year, a few that are sort of getting towards the top, but I've literally got no fruits. I've got a few flowers, finally. There's a few flowers, but I mean this I don't think properly flowered, and there's lots of flowers that aborted, and so yeah, it's not a good picture for the winter squash at all. So I mean, they're growing. You can see these are reasonably far up. This one's got to the top here. Again, flowers, female flowers, which is what we want to see. But yeah, just fingers crossed I get some fruit set quickly, because otherwise it's just not going to be time to get any fruits. I mean, in all the years I've been growing, which I make sound like it's a long time, but it's actually only 8 years, I've never not had enough winter squash to get us nearly through until spring. And most years we have enough winter squash to get us until we get the first courgettes in store. This year, it feels like I'll be lucky to get any. I don't want to miss these little tubs here of carrots. I've got 8 of those. And I mentioned that my apple trees didn't do very well. And again, here, look, this pear tree is normally laden with pears and has been for 8 years. But this year, again, I just feel like I'd be lucky if I get a week's harvest of pears off it. It is just grim. Right, so now I'll just show you the polytunnel, which again is a bit of a sorry tale, to be honest. So I'll start off at this end. These are my 3 second early courgettes, and obviously they've been pumping out courgettes for a long time now. I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. Now all of a sudden, because it's so cold again, quite a few starting to rot on me, not getting properly fertilised. But you know, I'm still getting plenty of courgettes. I'm not short of courgettes. But I'll be taking these plants out fairly soon because we've got loads of problems with the leaves. And I know I could spray them with milk and all that sort of thing, but I find that once a plant gets to a certain age, then you know, because these are early plants, they've been in the ground for ages. I think I sowed these 20th of February, something like that. So they're very old plants. They're just coming to the end of life, really. So I might be able to keep them going for a few weeks, but not too long. And these are the tomatoes. And these were big plants. They went in good time. But look at the size of these trusses. They're pathetic. Absolutely useless. So, yeah, I mean, I compared these tomatoes with the tomatoes last year, you know, same varieties, and they were just dripping last year. And, you know, because you had that really nice spring last year, and then a wet summer, a bit like this one. But, you know, they just had such a good chance to get really well established. They had really good fruit set and everything. And this year, just rubbish fruit set, tiny trusses, small sickly looking plants and all that. These and these are San Marzano. These Black Moon, these have done a bit better, but I mean the truss size is still small. They're doing okay. A bit better, as I said, but I mean, it's still like literally like half the fruits that we had last year on equivalent plants. How could I have missed that sucker? It's massive. How could I have missed that? Anyway, it always amazes me, you know, that they can grow so big and you kind of regularly pruning them and everything, but and you just miss this massive thing. Anyway, and then these here are, I can't even remember the name of them. I'll put it up. Something plum, crimson plum. And I mean, they've hardly even set fruit. I mean, look, that's like the first fruits or something there, just like absolutely rubbish. And the truss sizes again, so small. So tomatoes are not, they're just not good this year. I mean, we'll have plenty of tomatoes. We've had tomatoes now for 7 weeks for harvesting for fresh. But in terms of ones for storage, well, processing into soups and things, yeah, we'll be lucky to get like 10 jars or something out of this. So, yeah, well, I suppose, you know, some things are good this year. Some things are bad. Some things are very bad. And new courgettes in here, doing much nicer. I think we've had how many weeks now? I can't exactly 7, is it? 9? No, 9 weeks of cucumbers we've been harvesting from the greenhouse. And then these are the main crops, and they're just starting to come. In fact, I just picked the first 3 yesterday. There's a decent little one down there now. So, you know, they come in thick and fast, basically. So I'll be taking all the greenhouse ones out pretty soon because, you know, there's only so many cucumbers you can eat. And just these 2 plants here will produce, well, probably like 20 a week or something like that. Because they grow up, you know, these strings up into the roof of the polytunnel, and they just go rampant, really. And, you know, melon wise, I've got 3 melons in here. This is a champagne watermelon. All this growth, look how sickly it is here. I mean, the new growth actually looks quite good, but it's just not time to ripen watermelons now. This is the Minnesota midget, and this one just got fruits out, looking just at the right time. It was flowering just in that nice warm week. And so I've got 2 fruits, 2 melons out of goodness knows how many plants. And there's another, I think, Minnesota midget. And that obviously didn't set any fruit, and it just maybe just got a couple just come in now, but yeah, what a disaster. And then celery, we've been harvesting this for months and months. It's doing all right. And then just a few leftover early beetroot. And because my summer beetroot is not quite ready yet, I just left these plants in. I just keep chopping them back because I don't want them to sort of get too big. And just filled the odd gap with some lettuce and things down here. But that is it, I think, for the polytunnel. I'll just show you the little orchard area down here. Got a cherry tree here. Hardly any cherries on it again. I'm just waiting. I've been waiting 6 years or something for this cherry tree. And, you know, there's a few on there, but not very many. Whereas this invincible pear, thank goodness for this pear tree, because this has got loads of pears on it. So, and they're really nice as well, really crispy, and keep really well. So, yeah, if it weren't for this tree, we'd be a bit short of pears this year. Plum tree, hardly any plums. I think in total, we've got a few plum trees scattered around. If we've got in total 20 plums, I'd be surprised this year. And then, you know, this apple's fine. We've actually got quite a nice range of fruits on here. Blackberries here, and again another apple tree, almost nothing, and the perennial kale. So that's it. My name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel. I'll see you soon.